things in music are more surprising than watching a superstar choose silence over stardom. Fame, fortune, and millions of devoted fans, and they still walked away. These 10 musicians had it all, and then deliberately left it behind. Number 10. Cat Stevens.
Barley rice, green pepper walls, and
5 consecutive platinum albums, a string of timeless songs that defined the early 1970s singer-songwriter movement. By 1977, Wild World, Peace Train, and Father and Son had made him one of the best-selling artists on the planet, with an audience that stretched from London to Los Angeles. Then, in 1978, at just 30 years old, he converted to Islam, changed his name to Yusuf Islam, auctioned off his guitars, and walked away from everything he had built.
if you wanna leave, take good care. Hope you make a lot of nice friends out there.
He did not simply take a break. He gave interviews explaining that music, in his view, had become incompatible with his faith, and he committed to that belief with remarkable consistency for nearly 3 decades. He returned to secular recording only in 2006 with N.E. Other Cup, an album that proved his voice and his songwriting instincts had survived the silence completely intact.
For the singing, praise for them all.
Number 9. Lauryn Hill.
To fit the right, your children motion out. Life is worth much more than gold. Oh.
8 Grammy nominations in a single night, winning 5, including Album of the Year. That was February 1999, and the miseducation of Lauryn Hill had just become the defining artistic statement of its era, selling 19 million copies worldwide after its August 1998 release. No debut album in history had ever swept the Grammys with that kind of authority, and the music world assumed it was only the beginning. It was not the beginning. It was essentially the end. Hill never released a proper follow-up studio album, retreating from public life and citing the exploitation she had experienced inside the music industry. Her 2002 release, MTV Unplugged No. 2.0, was a raw, unpolished acoustic session that baffled critics and label executives alike. She has remained one of music's most discussed and most elusive figures for over 20 years since. Number 8. Syd Barrett.
Obliged to you for making it clear that I'm not here.
In the summer of 1967, the Piper at the Gates of Dawn arrived and announced a band unlike anything British audiences had heard before. Syd Barrett was the creative engine behind Pink Floyd's early psychedelic sound, the songwriter, the vocalist, and the visual centerpiece of a band that was rapidly becoming one of the most talked-about acts in England. He was 21 years old, charismatic, and genuinely visionary. Within a year, Barrett's behavior had become so unpredictable that his bandmates, including Roger Waters and David Gilmour, could no longer rely on him to perform. He was quietly replaced by Gilmour in April 1968 and released 2 eccentric solo albums in 1970 before retreating entirely to his mother's home in Cambridge. He painted, grew vegetables, and refused virtually all contact with the music world for the remaining 36 years of his life, passing away in 2006 at age 60. Number 7. Shania Twain.
Just go faster, faster, don't be slow, rev it up to you.
40 million copies sold. Come On Over, released in Tbari, November 1997, became the best-selling studio album ever recorded by a female artist in any genre, a record that still stands. Her follow-up, Up, released in 2002, sold another 20 million copies worldwide, confirming that her commercial dominance was not a fluke. She was the undisputed queen of country pop crossover, and the world was waiting for whatever came next. What came next was 15 years of silence. Her husband and longtime producer, Robert John "Mutt" Lang, had an affair with her closest friend, shattering both her marriage and her creative partnership in one devastating blow.
Looks like we made it. Look how far we've come, my baby.
A separate battle with dysphonia, a neurological vocal condition, left her uncertain whether she could ever sing again. She documented the ordeal in her 2011 autobiography, From This Moment On, and did not release new music until 2017's Now.
Glad we didn't listen. Look at what we would be missing.
Number 6. John Lennon.
Living for today.
Imagine had already entered the cultural conversation as one of the most important songs ever written. Mind Games, Whatever Gets You, Through the Night, and Number 9 Dream had all charted strongly through the early 1970s, and John Lennon remained one of the most visible and politically outspoken musicians alive. Then, in October 1975, his son Sean was born, and Lennon made a decision that stunned the music industry. He stopped, completely and deliberately.
Someday you'll join us.
For 5 years, Lennon declined interviews, refused recording sessions, and retreated into domestic life at the Dakota apartment building in New York City. He baked bread, raised Sean, and told anyone who asked that he had simply chosen fatherhood over fame. He returned in November 1980 with Double Fantasy, co-created with Yoko Ono, speaking openly about how much the years of quiet had restored him. He was killed outside the Dakota just 3 weeks after the album's release.
Imagine all the people.
Before we continue, which of these departures genuinely surprised you the most? Were you listening to any of these artists when they walked away? Drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you are watching from. Number 5. Joni Mitchell. Blue, released in 1971, is consistently ranked among the greatest albums ever recorded. Court and Spark went platinum and produced her highest charting single. Hajira, The Hissing of Summer Lawns, and Shadows and Light demonstrated a restless artistic intelligence that reshaped what popular music could say and how it could say it. Across 3 decades, she had influenced everyone from Prince to Tori Amos to Elvis Costello. By the late 1990s, Mitchell had grown deeply disillusioned with the industry surrounding her work. She told the Los Angeles Times in 2002 that she was done, describing the music business as a cesspool and walking away with the kind of finality that left little room for negotiation. She released Shine in 2007 as an environmental statement, but consistently framed it as a one-time exception rather than a comeback. Her legacy as one of the most gifted composers of the 20th century requires no further additions.
Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you.
Number 4. Bill Berry. 85 million records sold, Automatic for the People, Out of Time, and Document had made Rem one of the most critically respected and commercially successful rock bands in the world through the late 1980s and into the 1990s. Bill Berry had been at the drum kit since the band's formation in Athens, Georgia in 1980, a founding member whose steady rhythmic foundation anchored everything the band recorded. On March 1, 1995, during a concert in Lausanne, Switzerland, Berry suffered a brain aneurysm on stage. He survived, recovered, and returned to finish touring commitments with the band. But the experience fundamentally changed his perspective. In October 1997, he quietly announced his retirement from Rem, moved to a farm outside Athens, and built a life entirely removed from the music industry. He has made only the rarest of public appearances since, and Rem, continuing as a trio, never quite recaptured what they had been, with him behind the kit. Number 3. Phil Collins. 14 top 10 singles as a solo artist in the United States alone, 8 Grammy Awards, a parallel career as frontman of Genesis that produced Invisible Touch, the #1 album of 1986 in both the United Kingdom and the United States. By the early 2000s, Phil Collins had sold over 100 million records and remained one of the most recognizable voices of the previous 2 decades. His commercial run through the 1980s was almost without comparison. In March 2002, Collins announced his retirement from music, citing progressive hearing loss in his left ear and severe nerve damage in his hands caused by a complicated spinal surgery.
I'm someone else's name. But when you wake in
The nerve damage had left him unable to grip drumsticks, the instrument that had originally made him famous before his voice had. He eventually returned for his Not Dead Yet tour in 2017, performing seated due to his physical limitations, a sight that moved many longtime fans to tears while reminding them of everything he had given before walking away.
Giving all, take one bite, living with you, put me through it all the time.
Number 2. Barbra Streisand.
Misty watercolor memories.
On June 17, 1967, Barbra Streisand stood before 135,000 people in New York's Central Park for a free concert, already the biggest-selling female recording artist in the world at just 25 years old. She forgot the lyrics to "Happy Days Are Here Again" mid-performance, and the anxiety she felt in that moment triggered a crippling stage fright that would define the next 3 decades of her career. She stopped performing live concerts entirely. For 27 years, she continued recording studio albums, winning Oscars and Emmys and Tonys, building a career of almost absurd breadth. But the concert stage remained off limits. Her 1994 return to live performance at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas became a cultural event in itself, with tickets selling for prices that made headlines nationwide. She detailed the full weight of those 27 years of stage fright in her 2023 memoir, My Name is Barbra, one of the most candid accounts of performance anxiety ever written by a major artist. Number 1. John Deacon.
Just crash, crash, crash. You feel less car, baby.
Another one, Bites the Dust, reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold over 4 million copies in the United States alone. John Deacon wrote it. He also wrote I Want to Break Free, You're My Best Friend, and co-wrote Under Pressure with David Bowie. As Queen's bassist, he was the quiet architect behind some of the most commercially successful moments in the band's catalog, a band that had sold over 300 million records worldwide. When Freddie Mercury died in November 1991, Deacon honored his friend's memory by participating in the Freddie Mercury tribute concert in April 1992 and contributing to the posthumous album Made in Heaven in 1995. Then he simply stopped. No farewell statement, no dramatic announcement. He declined every invitation to join Brian May and Roger Taylor for Queen's subsequent touring projects with Paul Rodgers and later Adam Lambert, and he has not given a single public interview in over 25 years. Some exits need no explanation.